Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar titled Empowering Immigrant Communities to Fight Against Fraud in Multiple Languages. My name is Anthony Salas. I am the events director with Welcoming America. And again, happy to have you all joining us here today. Before we begin the presentation, do you just want to go over a few quick housekeeping items with you? The webinar is being recorded, and you'll get the link to the recording as well as the resources and items that will be referenced during the presentation via email in the next few days. So again, I saw a couple of you say you weren't going to be able to stay for the whole presentation. Perfectly fine. We got you covered. We'll get a recording to you. And then also, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. Should there be any AI bots coming into the chat, because we are providing the recording, there is no need for that. So those will be removed. We don't want that to be a bother to any of you. So just wanted to note that. In terms of questions, if you have any issues with the platform or need help with anything, you can use that chat feature. If you have content questions, please enter those into the Q&A feature at any time during the presentation. We're going to be keeping an eye on those. We might take some questions before we get into the formal Q&A at the end. But again, we do encourage you to enter your questions at any time as the presentation goes on. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers joining us today. From the Federal Trade Commission, we have Rosario Mendez, who is the Assistant Director with the Division of Consumer and Business Education. We have Gemma de la Heras, who is the Consumer Education Specialist, also with the Division of Consumer and Business Education. And if you're a network member, you might know this name, but Edmundo Lijo is with an assistant city attorney in the Immigrant and Refugee Program with the city of St. Paul, Minnesota. And so we are very excited to have all of them joining today and excited to have them present the information that they have for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rosario to get us started.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. I was at a webinar with Anthony and with you all last year, and I'm happy to be here again, giving some updates from the Federal Trade Commission. So as Anthony said, my name is Rosario Mendez, and I'm here with my colleague, Gemma de las Heras. We both work at the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, in the Division of Consumer and Business Education. And as I said, we're delighted to be here with you today to talk about working together to empower immigrant communities to fight against fraud and scams. Next slide. So first, let me tell you a little bit about the FTC. Some of you may already know us, but if you don't, I'll just give you a brief explanation of what we do and who we are. We are a federal agency. We are the nation's consumer protection agency. So we work to stop fraud and deception and unfair business practices and protect all communities from these bad business practices. And the staff at the FTC do this in several ways. We do it through enforcement. So the FTC does investigations, we sue companies and people that break the law, and we try to get money back to people whenever possible. And we also do this through education and outreach, which is the role that Gemma and I play. So we try to tell people about their rights and businesses about their responsibilities with messages and public available information. But what we have found is that we really can't do it alone, especially the outreach piece, which is why we partner with organizations like Welcoming America and hopefully, with your network. So in order to amplify the messages and reach a broader audience, we try to build this partnerships with community organizations, with national groups that serve the communities that we really want to, have an impact in. So we hope that after our presentation today, we can continue working with you all to this end. Next slide. Thank you. This is what we will cover today. Him and I will take turns presenting. We'll start with a quick, overview of the most reported scams to the FTC. Then we'll share a few examples of specific scams that we see targeting the immigrant community, along with many of the FTC resources in multiple languages that we want to share, which is really kind of like the update from what we've, from last year to this year, that now we have a lot of more resources in multiple language that you can use for free in your programs. We'll also tell you where people can report. This is another update because now we can take reports in multiple languages. And then we'll wrap it up, by sharing some ideas on how we can work together. And of course, we'll take questions kind of like in between, but also at the end. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's start with what we know about scams based on FTC data. This is just kind of like an overview to give you an idea of the kind of information that we have. So when people report fraud or other business practices to the FTC, that information goes to a database called the Consumer Sentinel Network database. So this database also includes reports that people file with other federal agencies and also and some organizations like the Better Business Bureau and other contributors. So this database is available to other law enforcement, and it's also available to us to see kind of like what trends and what, kind of like things that people are experiencing and reporting to us. So it's really important information because it helps us know the tricks and tendencies that scammers are using to scam people so that we can alert people about those scams. So when people report to the FTC, really they're actually helping, alert others about the scams. So last year, to give you an idea, we got a total of 2.6 million reports related to fraud. And while this number is only a slight increase from previous year, what we found was that people reported losing a lot more money than in the previous year and than ever, really. So people reported losing $10 billion to fraud, which is huge, right? And it's a substantial increase from the previous year. So we just know that a scam is scams are out there, they're impacting all communities, and people are losing a lot of money. So it's really important to get information out to people so that they can spot the scams and avoid them when they see them. Next slide, please. The 5 most reported frauds last year to the FTC were basically the same as the previous year, with imposter scams being number 1. Imposter scams are the number 1 thing that people report to us. We know that especially government imposters scams are huge, but this year, we also saw that business imposters received a huge increase, just like last year. And basically, with imposter scam and business scams and business imposter scams, what I mean is this is when someone pretends to be somebody they're not, to take your money, take your information. The scammers pretend to be a family member. They pretend to be a love interest that you met online. They pretend to be the government, as I mentioned, or a business, especially businesses that that are well known. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So their goal is always to trick you into sending them money or personal information. Online shopping scams were the second most reported scams last year, just kind of problems with online shopping. This often involved people not getting what they ordered or being billed for something that they didn't order at all. Fake prices and sweepstakes and lottery scams were the third. We also always see this as one of the top scams reported, followed by investment scams. And here there's an interesting story because people, in fact, reported losses to investment scams a lot more than previous year. So we do know that people are losing a lot of money to investment scams, and I hear this is really particularly concerning with communities that speak different languages because I hear that when we do translation, sometimes the word investment means different things in different languages, and so getting the message out as to how this scam works, I think it's really important for our communities. And business and job opportunities was another, the part of the top 5 list of reports. We saw an increase in total reports related to business and job opportunities, particularly when people lost money to job scams and scams around employment opportunity. And we'll talk a little bit more about those scams later on. So the data only, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. The data only tell us one part of the story. The stories we hear from the community members, from our own investigations, from our own experiences, really tell the other part, which is the important part, I think, that can relate, can make a connection with the communities. So let's talk about what else we can do to help fight back against the scams, and how we can make the connections between these scams so that people can really spot them when they see them. So I'll pass it on to Hema now for the next few slides.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. Well, last year, we saw an increase in reports that from people who were contacted by scammers through email. And these phishing emails are designed to trick you into thinking that they're from a company that you know. Then they will ask for a payment, or they'll tell you to click on a link to give them information to resolve some sort of issue, but it's really a scam. And on the slide here, you can see an example of one of these phishing emails from someone pretending to be Geek Squad, the tech support company, but really we're seeing scammers sending emails from companies, well-known companies like Amazon, FedEx, different banks, and these emails look very real, even though they aren't. They're sometimes hard to spot. But here's what you can do if you get a similar email. Number one, don't click on any links. Don't call the phone number that they give you in the email or the text message or the phone call that you get. And if you think that it could be a real issue with the company that you do business with, then contact that company using a website or a phone number that you know to be real. Do your own research. Never contact the company through the information that they're giving you. Let's go to the next slide now. And Rosario mentioned earlier sweepstakes, prize, and lottery scams. Those are among the top reported scams to the FTC every year. The most recent data shows reported losses of $338 million to this type of fraud. And unfortunately, that number has been going up in the past few years. These scams usually start with a call or a message that says, "You're a winner." Unfortunately, that's a lie. And they'll tell you that to get this, so-called prize, you have to send money somewhere or you have to click somewhere to give your information. But it's a scam the moment that they ask you to pay money for a prize. Real prizes are free, and you shouldn't have to pay for them. And another clue is that if they ask you for financial information, that's also another clue that it's a scam. There's absolutely no reason why you should ever have to give your bank account or credit card number to claim a prize. If anyone asks for that, it's a scam every time. Same goes for your social security number. If a scammer asks you for that information, they're hoping that you might click on a link and verify personal information or give them personal information. That may download malware on your device. So if you get a message like this, delete it without clicking on any links. And let's go on to the next slide, please. So let's talk for a minute about job scams. These include ads for jobs that they really don't exist, or they say that you must pay to get the job. Scammers post these phony job opportunities on the same places that legitimate employers do. That's why it's so hard to tell them apart sometimes. They do it in online ads, on social media, and also on well-known job sites where people go looking for jobs. So it can be tricky to tell if a job is real or is it scam. But there are some clues to help you know. Scammers are going to ask for your personal information or financial information like your social security number or your bank account number even before you apply for the job. So don't give that to them. It's really a scam. Scammers might also send messages about a job that you didn't apply for. Something else that they can do is send you a check and ask you to send part of the money back to them or to someone else. Don't do it. That's also a scam, and you'll lose the money that you send. Legitimate employers won't ask you to ever cash a check or deposit a check in your account and send money back. And last but not least, never pay to get a job. In real job placement, the employer pays the agency, not the person applying or looking for the job. So we have a lot more information on this topic and other examples at ftc.gov/job scams if you want to know more. And let's go to the next slide, please. So we know scammers are very good at what they do. And sometimes no matter how careful someone is, it can happen. We might pay a scammer or give personal information. And here's what to do in those cases. The most important thing is act quickly. Start with the company that you use to send the money. Tell them that it was fraud and that you want their help to get your money back. If you act as soon as you realize that you paid a scammer, and depending on how you paid, you might be able to recover some money or at least some of your money. On the slide here, you can see a quick reference, but there's more information on this at ftc.gov/languages. And we're going to talk a little bit in a little bit more detail about that in just a few minutes. But let me hand it back to Rosario for the next slide.
Thank you, Hema. And Hema mentioned ftc.gov/languages because we have this information that's on the screen on what to do if you've been scammed in multiple languages, and we'll cover that. But that's why we're trying to send people to that, especially groups that work with people who speak different languages. Next slide, please. Oh, there you go. Sorry, report front. So this is basically information on where you can report fraud. And this piece is really important. I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of my presentation. This piece is really important in the fight against scams because scammers don't really, they don't scam just one person. So if you see or experience a fraud or a scam, or you experience a bad business practices, chances are that people in your community and around you are also experiencing something similar. So when you report the fraud to the FTC, every time you're reporting, you are giving us a piece of a puzzle, basically, that helps us build cases, stop the scammers, and also alert others, as I mentioned, because we use that information to educate people and to alert people about the different scams. So when you report fraud, you really are helping your community. You're helping protect your friends and your family. And it's really easy to report in English. You can do it online very easily at reportfraud.ftc.gov. That website is also available in Spanish, so it's easy to report. We know that not everyone, and I'll tell you in a minute how to report in other languages, and we know that not everyone feels comfortable providing information to a government database. I totally understand that, but there are definitely options. You can submit the report anonymously. We do not collect, it's not mandatory to say, your name, address, or anything like that. You can just leave those blank and just tell us what happened. That's what is the most important thing for us, to know, what happened. Or you can also work with an advocate or someone else that can help you report, right? So the people in this webinar can report on behalf of someone else with their permission. So the system will say, are you reporting for yourself or for someone else? And when you click so for someone else, then you as an advocate can put your own information there, your own contact information, because what happens is that if there is an investigation, if that complaint triggers, because we already are investigating that company, for example, that you're complaining about, and the investigators want to talk about, more about what happened, then they can call the advocate, and through the advocate get the more information. And so those are some options about reporting if you don't, if people don't feel comfortable putting their, their information in a federal government database. Next slide, please. So this is what we are super excited about. We are now able to take reports in other languages. For decades, we've been taking reports in English and Spanish online, and now over the phone, we can take reports on basically any language. And so, to report in other languages, people can call the number that's on the screen, 877-382-4357. You select option 3 to hear a list of languages. If your language is not in that list, then you press 0 at the end, and then you still will be connected to someone. So when you get connected to someone, it's basically an interpreter in your language that will help you file the report. So this person is going to be an intermediary between the person reporting, and the FTC call center representative who will be taking the report and putting it in the database. And then they also will be able to give you next steps to try to solve your situation, especially if you paid the scammer, with some of the advice that Hema just provided. Next slide, please. So scammers sometimes get a hold of personal or financial information, like Hema mentioned. And so people, they could try to use that information to open accounts in your name, or, try to steal your identity. So we know that identity theft is also a huge problem, not for, for every community. So if people are worried about a scammer that has personal information, the best thing to do is to go to identitytheft.gov or robodeidentidad.gov in Spanish. And this interactive site will create a customized plan for you based on the information that got lost, that was compromised. So that is really, really helpful, because people who have been experienced identity theft, if you have had any of these problems, you know that it can cause a lot of trouble, and you need kind of like a plan to follow on, who to call, who to send a letter to, how to clear your credit report and all that. And so by reporting on this website, you get all that information. Next slide, please. And the other piece of this is that now we can also help people that speak different languages, so they can report identity theft and also get some information on what to do next by calling, 877-438 4338. And so it's a different number than to report fraud, but it's the same concept in the sense that you press 3 to get a list of languages, and then you eventually will talk to an interpreter who will help you report the problem. And in a minute, we'll talk also about resources that we have in multiple languages to go together with this. Because one thing is, once you experience fraud or you experience identity theft, reporting is so important. But how can we give people information so they don't have this problem, so they don't fall for these scammers? So I'll pass it on to Hema now.
Thank you. Well, now that we know more about common scams and scammers' tactics and how to report, let's talk about the resources, like Rosario was saying, that we have available to you and your network to help raise awareness about frauds and scams. Both experience and research tell us that talking about how to spot and avoid scams helps protect communities, because sharing what you know empowers people to talk to their own circle of friends and family about scams. So let's go on to the next slide. The FTC, as we have been telling you, has created materials in 12 languages in addition to English and Spanish on how to spot, avoid, and report scams in other consumer problems. You're going to find those at ftc.gov/languages. I'll guide you through what's available online and in print. All these materials are free for you to use. as if they were yours. And let's go on to the next slide. The first thing that you'll find at ftc.gov/languages is the article How to Avoid a Scam. It's one of the most popular publications that we have. It's available online in 12 languages in addition to English and Spanish. The online version, is a 2-page PDF that can easily be shared or downloaded, and you can also print it and pass it to people that you work with or that you know that might be interested in learning more. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this same publication is also in print, available in simplified Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Spanish, and English, and you can order it for free from ftc.gov/bulk order. The publication and its shipping are both free, and that you'll probably get it in about 3 to 4 weeks after you place the order. Moving on to the next slide. Also on the same website, ftc.gov/languages, you'll find what to do if you were scammed. It's a 2-page article with steps to take if you paid a scammer, gave personal information, or if a scammer got access to your computer. As I mentioned before, if any of these things happen to you, you'll want to act quickly to try to get your money back and protect your information. This article is also available in 12 languages, online only, but it's a PDF that you can easily share, download, and print it. And let's go to the next slide. What you see on the screen here is the fraud handbook, and has information to help recent arrivals to the US spot, avoid, and report fraud, and to help people like refugee caseworkers or other people working with immigrants know what advice to give them. It's also available in 12 languages at ftc.gov/languages, and it's just 1 page, front and back, so it's easy to print and to share. And the next slide. You'll find also a resource for businesses at ftc.gov/languages. Scam in Your Small Business is the name of the publication, and it offers advice on how to handle common scams that target small businesses, along with what employers can do to raise awareness with their staff and to help them spot and avoid scams too. It's available online in 12 languages plus English and Spanish. Free copies are also available in print in simplified Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese, in addition to English and Spanish. And let's go to the slide here. Another resource we want to share is on identity theft, and Rosario talked a little bit about this. That's when someone uses your personal information or financial information without your permission to commit fraud. Chances are you know someone who has experienced identity theft, or maybe it happened to you, but in any case, it really can happen to anyone in any community. This 2-page article, How to Spot, Avoid, and Report Identity Theft in Your Language, will help people learn what identity theft is, how to spot it, what to do to protect their identity, and where to report and get help if it happens. To order free copies in English and Spanish, we also have them in simplified Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese. The website to order in print is ftc.gov/bulk order. And you can make really a difference in your community by sharing this resource with people who need to know more about how to protect their information and what to do if they suspect identity theft. Next slide. And outreach is an integral part of the FTC's work to protect consumers in all communities. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, a big component of our outreach efforts, it includes building partnerships with organizations like yours to deliver consumer protection messages in an effective way. Now that you're part of our network, we hope that you'll share what you've learned today. We want to support your outreach efforts and make consumer education part of your programs so that we can all work together to help people in your community. But I'm going to hand it back to Rosario to tell you more about this on the next slide.
Sure, next slide. Thank you. So, as Hema mentioned, and I mentioned at the beginning, I hope that we can partner with you also because we know that we can fight fraud against immigrants together. I have been answering some of the questions on the chat. There's a lot of resources that we have. They're all fully free. Some of them you can order in print, and Hema shared the links to order in print, and it's free to order in print. And they're available. A lot of these resources they're they can be shared easily on social media also, or on your newsletter, or obviously if you order in print at an in-person event, some people like to have something in print or wherever the community gathers. And I would say that whether you get FTC materials online or in print, I hope that you find them useful. And if you have suggestions, some people have been putting things on the chat, asking me questions. If you have suggestions on how to get this to particular communities, to particular organizations, we're going to give you our email in a minute. So you please feel free to contact us directly. Next slide, please. One of the best ways I want to have a personal relationship with you, but also one of the best ways to keep in touch with the FTC and to know what we know in terms of what scams are, what scammers are doing, and what scams are affecting different communities is to keep up with our latest blog, our latest consumer alerts. And you can see on the screen how to sign up for that, ftc.gov/consumer alerts in English, or if you rather receive it in Spanish, we also do it in Spanish. We pretty much put alerts every day or every other day, not only consumer alerts, but also information on cases that we file, but also very practical. These blogs and consumer alerts are very short, 300 words, and can really help you share information easily with people in your community through social media and other ways. And please don't be shy. We're going to share, next slide, please. We're going to share our contact information here. And if take a picture of this slide or make a note, and please email us if you have any questions, suggestions, follow-ups. We would love to hear from you. That is the end of our presentation. And let's see, let's take a minute to see if there's any other questions that I haven't answered. The Notario Fotonovelas are fantastic. Oh, thank you, Catherine. Oh, hi, Catherine. I just wish to recommend that you include languages spoken by Black immigrants like Swahili, Amharic, Pidgin English, and among others. So we do have information in Amharic at ftc.gov/languages. A lot of resources actually in Amharic. Thanks for saying that. I don't think right now we have anything in Swahili, but I'll be happy to, work with you if you have the facility to translate some things, or if you want anything that to share. But thank you for that recommendation as well. That is happening every single. Okay, different languages will be very helpful for everyone. Okay. Anything else that anyone can want to ask? If not, then I'll just transition to Edmundo, who has some great information to share as well.
Thank you, Rosario. Good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you on the West Coast, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm Edmundo Lihome, an assistant city attorney with the city of St. Paul, and I am charged with managing and developing the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs program for the city of St. Paul. It's a program to help ensure that immigrants and refugees continue to feel welcome and that they belong in our city. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit specifically about a specific type of fraud, fraudulent immigration scams, and an awareness campaign that we did in St. Paul a few years back. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm going to be talking to you about what's commonly known as notario fraud, which is basically fraudulent immigration services. In Latin American countries, notarios are, very well respected. It's a position that requires a great deal of education. It's actually harder to become a notario than it is to become a lawyer. So people come from many Latin American Spanish-speaking countries thinking that notarios are very important people and can do work for them. And when in actuality in the United States, a notary is just someone who can take a sworn oath and they pay a fee to the state, usually get some insurance, and they can stamp documents saying that they've taken an oath from someone and that there's attesting to what they said in the written document. So it's very different. But people come and they think that notarios can help them with their immigration cases. And fraudulent immigration services begin to pop up and tend to increase following major shifts in U.S. immigration law and policy. And these fraudsters will often over-exaggerate the effects of the policy and changes to gain customers and gain importance in a community and really take advantage of people. Next slide. Next, thank you. As a result of these fraudulent immigration services, the person who's applying for the immigration benefit is at risk of losing any status they may have or may have been able to obtain, because many times the fraudsters don't know what they're doing, or they may be submitting fraudulent or phony information on the applications. If it's caught and can be corrected, oftentimes this type of fraud will delay the actual application process, because an attorney has to come in and repair the damage that was done and kind of help the applicant to rehabilitate the application, and that creates a great deal of additional financial cost to the applicant. So it's very costly to the resident who is trying to obtain the immigration benefit. It's also a problem for service providers, because one, in the state of Minnesota and many other states across the United States, this kind of service without a law license is the unauthorized practice of law, and that is a crime. It's a misdemeanor in Minnesota, and it's prosecuted in our state by our county attorneys and the Attorney General's office. Also, it can be the fraudulent or misuse of a notary public responsibilities if a notary is using their position in order to defraud immigrants and refugees in the filing of applications. So we take it very seriously here. I work with the prosecutor's office, and we take it very seriously, this type of fraud, and are always on the lookout. Next slide, please. So in 2021, we received a $15,000 grant from the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund to do a consumer protection for our immigrant and refugee communities in St. Paul. We worked with our Office of Financial Empowerment and my program, the Immigrant Refugee Affairs Program, and we looked at our population. And according to the American Community Survey, between 2014 and 2019, 20% of our immigrant population in the city grew to 20% of our population. During that same time, the immigrant growth in our city was responsible for 62.4% of the city's growth in population. And in addition, and the reasons for that is that Minnesota, and specifically St. Paul, has a very long and proud tradition of resettling immigrants and refugees. And because of our willingness to settle refugees and welcome immigrants to our community, St. Paul schools have identified over 100 languages that are spoken in St. Paul. So that at times can be a little bit of a challenge when we're communicating with our communities, because we really do make an effort to communicate with them in a language that they understand, and that we can get information to people in a way that is useful to them, and they can feel they can trust the information. When you're communicating with immigrants and refugees, trust is paramount, and our efforts were really directed at really building trust within our communities, so that we could not only help the individuals, but also learn about the scams that were going on in our communities, because there's not much we can do about those scams if we don't learn about them. Next slide, please. So our campaign was an 8-week education and awareness campaign that we did on the city's social media. We had about 75,000 followers on that social media. And over that 8-week period, we had over 700,000 hits on our media campaign. Most of them came to the city's website. We had a landing page for this program, and most of those hits came to that landing page. The audience that we were trying to address were potential victims, good faith bad actors. And yes, what's a good faith bad actor? Well, we also learned that sometimes community organizations or churches or faith-based organizations will try to help immigrants and refugees with their applications. They'll help them fill out paperwork, and they think, well, I'm just filling out forms. But they don't realize there's a lot of legal advice and a lot of legal understanding that goes into filling out those forms. And oftentimes they can do damage to the individual that then need to be repaired. So they're not acting in bad faith or with ill will, but they make mistakes. And we really wanted to talk to those good faith bad actors as well. And then, of course, we wanted to, bring it to the attention of the intentional bad actors that we're watching. We're looking out for you. So our method was social media. We used Facebook and Twitter. We had organic posts at first, and then we asked many of our partners, our community partners, to boost those and share and retweet those messages. Then we did actually use some of that $15,000 to pay to boost some of those messages. We realized that we couldn't do everything, but we decided to go with the 4 most spoken languages, actually the 5 most spoken languages in St. Paul. And I say 5 because we started with English, which is the most spoken language in the city. And then, but we also did it in Spanish, Somali, Oromo, and Hmong. The effort was a partnership between 2 city departments, the Office of Financial Empowerment and the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Program. But then we did hire a multicultural communications firm, New Publica, which is a Latinx communications firm, and they assisted us with messaging in the social media campaign. And then we had community partners, Immigrant Law Center Minnesota, which is one of our larger legal service providers in the state, and also Lutheran Social Services of Minnesota, which is a refugee resettlement organization, and they assisted us with providing messaging in several mostly in Spanish and Somali. Next slide, please. Oh, there you go. So here we have the Immigration Forward awareness page. This was our landing page, and I can't see the bottom of this slide, but at the bottom of the slide, I'm giving you a link to the page, and on that page we have the entire social media campaign, everything we put out. And our intent on having this on our page and having it public is we want to share it with everyone. We want other communities to take whatever they find is useful on our page, steal from us, borrow, take it all, and just use it, because we think this message is so important in so many communities that really we wanted to just share this with as many people who wanted it or might need it. So I see Anthony put the link in the chat, so you will have access. If you go on that page, you will have access to everything we've done around this campaign, and I'm always happy to talk to people. I'll put up my contact information at the end of my discussion here, and I'm always open to having people contact me about this particular campaign and what we've done. Next slide, please. So lessons learned from this project. Well, first, we realized we had to start somewhere. When we first took this on, it was kind of overwhelming. How do we do this? How do we connect with people? And we realized that we were needing to provide education and awareness around consumer financial protection, which is something we've not really done before in the city. So we realized we just had to start somewhere and just jump in, and that's what we did. So my first recommendation is just jump in and start doing it, because you will learn as you go, and you'll get better, and you'll communicate with more people, and and that communication will grow and grow. And it really is just, you got to just start somewhere. And also, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but we realized we wanted to do more and more, and we wanted to go faster, but we ended up going kind of slow, we felt, but going slow was good because we learned and we actually built trust that way, and we were able to really meet a lot more community members that really needed to hear from us, and it gave us an opportunity to learn as we were going along and really make things better. We also learned that we needed to maximize our partnerships. Going slow also gave us the opportunity to work with more community organizations, more faith-based organizations that heard about the campaign and really started to reach out to us. And proximity to the matter really issued. We had 4 Latinx members on the team developing this campaign, including one intern who has DACA status. So we really wanted to work with people who were from immigrant communities, planning and putting this together. We also used a Latinx-led communications firm, as I mentioned, the firm earlier, and who has done a lot of work in immigrant communities. And because this type of fraud is so common in the Latinx community, we really tried to work with the Latinx community, at least initially. And now we are starting to see that this is, as you'll see in a few minutes, this is really a problem across immigrant communities. Next slide. So I really want to focus on lessons learned to maximize partnerships. One of our biggest partners is the city of Minneapolis. My counterpart in Minneapolis, Michelle Rivero, the director of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs in Minneapolis, like me, started in around 2018. She's a former immigration attorney who now works for the city. We were both AILA members, and we had worked together on various AILA projects in the past. But when we both got our positions, we started to communicate a little more because we were both one-person offices and realized that the communities that we were working with really didn't see city boundaries or county lines. They move from one city to the other. They may live in one city, shop in the other. They may shop in one city, but send their kids to school in the other city. They may, send their kids to school in one city, but have all kinds of faith-based activities in the other city. So there's a lot of mixing and moving around. So we realized that there was a lot of benefit to us working together, and together we built some synergy that really, came to create efforts that were greater than if we had done them individually. Coming together, that effort was such a benefit. So one of the things that we came together on was a Gateways for Growth initiative. Gateways for Growth is a joint project of Welcoming America and the American Immigration Council, and through this initiative, communities are given technical advice and a great deal of data around the immigrants and refugee communities that live in their cities and counties. And they assist the local community to develop an immigrant integration plan for their city. In 2021, Minneapolis and St. Paul each received a technical assistance grant individually, and both cities started out to do community engagement around our initiative, and quickly learned that we were engaging the same communities, we were engaging the same organizations, we were engaging the same individuals to try to come up with individual plans. So we were asking them to do double the work. The other thing that really impacted this effort was that this was right at the height of the pandemic. And also it was shortly after George Floyd had been murdered in Minneapolis. So our communities were very reluctant to engage with us. There was a lot of distrust. There was a lot of just feeling exhausted, and people just, I don't want to engage anymore. We're tired of engaging, and then nothing ever comes of it. So what we did was we decided to come together, and we ended up doing one initiative, and came up with one plan for the Twin Cities. That plan was released in April of 2022, and I put the link to the plan so you can see what resulted from our initiative. And part of that plan was to do many joint activities to engage with our communities. And one of the biggest engagements that we initiated was our citizenship initiative, which between the cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis, we have somewhere between 20 to 30,000 permanent residents that are technically eligible to naturalize. That means they've been permanent residents for at least 5 years, and they need to be vetted and go through a legal consultation to see if they might have some impediments to naturalizing, and seeing if it's safe for them to go forward. So we decided to do the citizenship initiative and to encourage longtime residents to naturalize. We started out doing monthly naturalization fairs, alternating each city, the location in each city. And over the course of that time, we started meeting with a lot of people and realizing that people had a lot more needs than just immigration. We were starting to hear about, immigration fraud. We were hearing about, wage theft. We were hearing about just immigrants being robbed in certain situations. So we realized that we needed to do more around community safety and community when we were talking about our community engagement. One of the things that came out of this citizenship initiative was that we learned of an attorney here locally who was scamming specifically the Somali community, and was taking their money and not filing their asylum applications. We came across a group of about 25 Somalis that had been working with this attorney, and we were able to then connect with the Office for Lawyers' Professional Responsibility, and we were able to bring a representative from that office to a meeting with the Somali community, and an investigation was initiated. So there we built a partnership with the Office for Professional Responsibility to take a look at when lawyers do things that might be unethical. So it was a very beneficial partnership with Minneapolis that actually brought us into a partnership with the Office of Professional Responsibility. We also at that time made connections with our Attorney General's office. And we then started working with our Attorney General because we started to realize that some of these scams and some of these defrauders don't just work in one city. They work across a community so that there may be jurisdictional lines. And in this case, the attorney was soliciting clients from Minneapolis, from St. Paul, from some of the suburbs. So we figured there was probably about 5 counties that were involved. So who has jurisdiction over the prosecution of that kind of a case? Well, the Attorney General can. So it also helped us to understand how these scams work and how we might be able to get law enforcement involved to assist. So I really want to encourage folks to work together with your local community organizations, work with your city and county officials to build partnerships, to do engagement together, because that's really how you start to build trust in immigrant and refugee communities. If they're seeing you out at their events and then you're hosting events and they're coming and really start to develop a dialogue, you will build trust, and that's when they really would start to come and report and let you know what's going on. So I can't encourage you enough to really work with your communities to really engage and build that trust. And with that, I'll turn it back over, I believe, to Anthony for questions. Oh, and there's my contact information. Happy to engage with people around any questions you might have.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Edmundo. And Rosario and Gemma, thank you both as well. This has been a lot of amazing information. We're going to move into some questions here. I'm going to stop sharing and pull everyone up on the screen here so everyone can see you. But while I'm doing that, Edmundo, one question that did come up for you was one of the slides you had referenced the 5 languages that were set up. Can you talk a little bit about how those languages were selected? How you determined which of those languages, how those were selected as the top languages?
Yeah, it was really quite simple. Those are the 5 most spoken languages in the city. So we knew we couldn't do, we have a lot of different languages that are spoken. So we figured we'd start with the 5 most spoken. If we were to do it today, those languages will have changed. Now, Korean, I believe, is the third most spoken language and the fastest growing language in the city of St. Paul. So we probably would have done messaging in Korean. But I also note that, we do have a lot of African refugees that have been resettling here. So we would probably do messaging in French. And we do. And some of that engagement that we did through the citizenship initiative, by the end of the initiative, we were bringing in interpreters to do those events for 12 different languages. So it just, you start to realize that you enter into community, and all of a sudden other communities will come and they need help. And if you don't have someone who speaks their language, you got to do something quick. So we learned that was one of the lessons learned from a mistake made. We didn't bring a Swahili interpreter, and someone came in who spoke. Another person who came actually spoke English and Swahili, and just a community member, and they just jumped in and started translating, which was a beautiful thing to see. That community really wanted to help each other. And the same thing happened. We had some folks from, I believe, Iran, and there was no one who spoke. I think it was Persian, and all of a sudden someone said, "Oh, I can speak that language," and they just jumped in and started translating. So we try to bring as many people as languages as we can, and we look at the community that we're actually going into, and we kind of determine what languages do we anticipate. But sometimes you get folks that you don't anticipate, so you just got to do your best. But I would say start with the top languages spoken in your community, and everyone should probably have a language access coordinator in their city that can identify those languages, because you're required to identify them under I believe it's Title VI of the Civil Rights Act.
I want to address that really quickly as well, because I see a couple of questions regarding the languages that the FTC also has information on. And I just want to say from the FTC's perspective, what we did. So we've been translating things in different languages for a long time, and I shared some of those links with the information related to refugees and information for immigrants. And at that time we looked at our partners and what they told us, where the need was and everything. For the newest materials at ftc.gov/languages, we looked at the American Community Survey that somebody mentioned on the chat, and I think Edmundo also mentioned. So we did look at that, and then within the top spoken languages of the United States, so we're national, we're looking at the whole nation, right? Not just the regional. And so with the top 10 languages, within the top 10 languages spoken in the United States, using the ACS answers of, where's the need? Where is the most need? So we looked then at the percentage of people from the community that reported being less familiar or less comfortable in English. And that's how we came up with the 12 languages that you have at ftc.gov/languages. I mean, it's not perfect. We would love to reach every single person that speaks a different language in the United States, but it's where we are right now, and where we and what we have, and we really try to look at need as one of our stars, if you will. But we do have the capacity to translate in other languages as needed. For example, with the wildfires in the disaster in Maui, for example, we were able to translate things into some of the languages that are spoken there, because we had partners on the ground that said we need information, related to scams that happen after a disaster in these languages that are, spoken in Hawaii. And so when we have those partnerships where there's a need, and we know that the information is going to be used and it's going to go directly to people that need it, we can work with something like that.
And I would just add that, sometimes in working communities, you've had a significant number of new arrivals where you're going to need a different language than one of the languages listed in the survey. And a good example here is we knew we had to come up with Pashto and Dari and Ukrainian, because we had a lot of new arrivals who spoke those languages. So we did start to add Pashto and Dari and Ukrainian to some of the events we've done.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of that information. It seems like the languages piece, we could probably have spent another half hour probably doing a deeper dive into that. Maybe that's the next webinar. Thank you, Rosario, Hema, and Edmundo for sharing all of your information and the time today. I did want to point out Hema is going to be at the Welcoming Interactive next month. The FTC is going to be one of our exhibitors, so we are honored to have you all joining us there. And Edmundo, I think you're going to be there as well.
Yes.
So if any of you are going to be at the Welcoming Interactive, look for them, say hello, you can continue conversations. I hope to see all of you there as well. If you don't know about the Interactive, you can go to welcominginteractive.org and learn more. Little plug there. Quick reminder as we wind up, the webinar has been recorded. And as I said, we'll be getting this over to you in the next few days. We just need to do a little branding and work on it, and we'll have it over to you along with all of the resources and links and things that were shared by everyone today. So you'll be getting that soon. Thank you all so much for taking time from your day to spend it with us, and we appreciate you very much. Also for all of the great work that you're doing out there to support others coming into our communities. Have a great afternoon and a great rest of your week, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.